Good evening and welcome to another exciting episode of Goth Yearbook. It is I, your host, as always, Eric, aka the Eric Wynn, and with me is that hostess with the mostest, Caitlin, aka the Caitlin D. Caitlin, how's it doing? How's it hooting?
How's it hooting?
How's it hooting?
It's hooting good. I, like you, have been just madly addicted to watching reality shows and avoiding external reality, true reality, real reality, my reality.
Yeah.
But I think that that's great, and I'm learning a lot about love. I'm watching Married at First Sight.
Yeah, so
and I know you are too. You actually turned me on to this season.
yeah, for those of you, well, for starters, I gotta say, it's exciting to finally have us both watching a reality show at the same time together. I feel like we're always like talking about different seasons or different shows, and the other one's not quite there yet. So it was exciting to feel like for the first time ever we were parallel on it. We were watching season 11 of a little show called Married at First Sight, where 5 different couples agree, people like come together and they get married. Literally, they walk down the aisle, and that's the first time they've ever seen the person on the other end of the aisle, and they get married on the spot. And they have, what is it, like 2 months that they have to like live together?
They have 8 weeks. Yeah,
8
2
weeks,
months.
yeah.
So, and they're actually matched by people who, I'm sure there's a combination of producers being like, we need some sparks to fly, and not always the good kind. But also, like, they are matched by, marriage and family therapists, counselor, or whatever people that.
There's a pastor, there's a like couples therapist, and then there's a thing called like a sexologist, which I guess is like, sounds like a sexy version of a mixologist.
But honestly, I was kind of surprised. I watched some early seasons last year, I think during like early pandemic times.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was kind of honestly surprised by how, like, yes, it's still a reality show. It's obviously very, put upon situations, very extreme circumstances for these people. But I was surprised that like they're not just out to destroy these people's lives. And sometimes I genuinely am like listening to like the pastor talk to them about like relationship stuff, and I'm like, wow, that is a good point. That's like really useful for info.
I'll say it right now, Pastor Cal, I love him. He's great. And then also I kind of on the fence. Sometimes she doesn't always give the best, but I love that. The one who's like more for like classic traditional couples therapist, Dr. Pepper, that's her actual name, who I say looks kind of like a little miniature owl. I love them both.
She's not on this season though, is she?
Yeah, she was there. Well, this was their COVID year, so she comes in like and out. She wasn't there a lot, but she's been around since like season 2 or 3. The only one who changes almost every season is the quote unquote like sexologist one, including one season where they found out like there was controversy because after the season it came out that the sexologist had slept with one of the husbands during the filming. Yeah, Married at First Sight. Hot goss.
Snap. That is some hot goss. Well, what I liked about this show is that it's kind of like watching people who have just taken like a bunch of drugs, like sort of suddenly contemplate like their position in life, because it's like, I imagine it's such a shocking experience to go through. Plus like everything you do is dissected. Plus you're being encouraged to talk through every little emotion that you have because you're like on camera. And it's so funny how often these people will be like, I am married. This is my husband. It's kind of like
you can make a drink. You can make a drinking game with how many times the couples at least each person of the 5 couples. So that's like 10 people will say at one point, like once an episode at least, this person is still a stranger, and I'm married to them.
I'm married. This is my husband.
That literally makes up. I gotta say right now, I need to put it on blast. All reality shows are guilty of this, but I've never seen one so fucking terrible about it. Where for those of you who've never seen something like this, the first 5 minutes is them being like previously on, and then an additional 2 to 3 minutes, I'm not exaggerating on that time, is spent being like, and here's what's coming up on this episode, and then they do that again at the very end of the episode. And then real quickly, the worst, like the most criminal aspect of it is they'll like reference something from a previous episode And in your traditional like Real Housewives, your classic kind of like reality show, usually it shows it like it'll be like a clip and it's black and white because black and white I guess signifies like the passing time, and it'll be like just 2 seconds. On this show, they will play the entire 5-minute clip because there's so little meat on the bone that they're like just getting anything they fucking can. So a whole episode will be about like one fight, but you have to watch like a fucking clip show to get to it.
Well, and what's like extra fascinating to me about that is how often their scenes just really don't move very much. Any like what they do show, especially fucking Henry, the strong silent type, but who won't answer a question. Like it was like
strong serial killer type.
He acts like he has something major to hide. Like he can't get anything out of this guy. But yeah, how many scenes will just be like showing their reactions, but like you never know what they're reacting to, obviously, because of editing. But then it's just like music and like zooming in on her, and then it's like chopping the onion, and then it's the cat, you know.
They use I call it the strong symbol. It's like that sound effect where it's like shh, because it's like trying to like signify like, oh, there's tension because he said he likes ramen.
Well, and what confuses me about that is like if you're filming all the time, how do you not have tons of content, you know? And it's really bizarre to me that like they would need to stretch it out that much.
Yeah.
Like with 8 weeks of material of like 2 strangers falling in love. Like you would think they would be in the cutting room like, how do we get this all in there?
Oh, I could not agree more. It is truly horrible. It's horrific that they do it that way. And I'm a sucker. Like I'm there all day, every day, man. I'll be there for the next season. I want to give a quick shout out that I'm seeing a lot of activity in the YouTube. A lot of new people, looks like, who are calling themselves baby bats, which is adorable.
Ooh.
I know. So hello to all of our new and returning baby bats. What if we stole that as like our thing?
I feel like we just did.
Yeah. Hello, murderinos. We just steal like all the different. Oh boy. Well, what do you say? I think we can put to bed the Married at First Sight season 11 chat. I think it's time we should just get our guests right on in here. What do you think, Caitlin?
Yeah, before we lose all these new baby bats.
Yeah, before they're like, what the fuck are they?
I agree.
It ain't God. All right. Well, telecommuting, astral projecting all the way from Athens, Georgia. At least the last time I checked, the man, the myth, Goth Dad, aka Goth Daddy. Oh.
Ooh.
Oh, hi there. Hi, baby bats. How you doing?
Oh, that just makes me feel so good. Even you just saying that. I'm like, I don't really have a strong father figure. And I feel like that's a big or a big portion of your audience, probably.
Yeah,
it's definitely, I mean, it's definitely something to it. I think it's like just weirdly comforting. I think the Midwestern accent is just like, there's something so American and just,
there is, yeah.
It's like, oh, geez, it's just so wholesome, you know.
It is very comforting. I also really need to stop saying on every episode like that I don't have a strong father figure, because I know he wants to listen to some episodes and he keeps asking me, and then like I can't send him any of this.
He's like, oh, Goth Dad is a good episode to get in on this. Maybe talking about dads, and he's like, oh shit.
Yeah, Eric, edit that out.
We'll just put George Michael's father figure. We'll just play during that part.
Yeah, there you go. How y'all doing?
Good. How you doing, sir?
You know, I'm still like psychically and physically recovering from DragonCon, which was a total insane blast. You know, that all happened really quickly for us because, so to give everybody a little bit of preface.
Let's talk about what is DragonCon first of all.
Yeah, so DragonCon is something that I attend almost every year, minus last year, but it for obvious reasons. But it's basically a convention that is like nerd culture at large. It's sort of everything. Anything that you could possibly be into, there's probably a panel for at DragonCon, because it's at normal capacity. It's about 55,000 attendees. So it basically takes up all of the major hotels in downtown Atlanta on Peachtree. And it's just known for the sort of party atmosphere versus other cons, which it's the only convention I've ever actually been to. But apparently, many other conventions are very sort of like, panel oriented and very like, we're going there to like see some celebs or like, it's I guess it's more like goal oriented, maybe, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But
I thought it was a
DragonCon
furry
is like-
convention, to be honest. So
yeah, well, you definitely see some furries.
Yeah.
It's not outside of the purview, but purview. That's your goth dad joke already for the day.
When you and
yeah.
Emily were posting it, I swear to God, I was like, "Is this some like event sponsored by like Bad Dragons, like a bunch of furries?" I thought it was like a whole kink thing you guys are going to, and I was like, "Shouts out, salute."
Yeah. No, that's maybe next year, but yeah. So we got a call about it was like a month and a half ago. It was not long ago, and I had basically put in an application around like February to perform there, assuming that it was going to actually happen, because that was when the vaccines were rolling out, and it's like, okay, this looks like maybe this is an opportunity. And we didn't hear anything for a while, and then we got a call from Billy Messina, who does the music supervisory committee for the con, and he was like, "Hey, do you think Vision Video would still want to play?" And I was like, "Yeah, yes," because I mean, A, I'm going to be there anyway, but B, it's always actually been sort of a goal for us, for at least me, because actually the band had never been. I was the only person who'd been to DragonCon, and I kept telling everybody, I'm like, it's just wild and it's a lot of fun. So yeah, we got together and got ready and put a set together for it, and then about a couple weeks before the actual convention, they called me back, and basically I was They asked me about doing sort of like a goth State of the Union panel that they always do. It's really actually pretty cool. It's like a bunch of goth musicians who just talk about the subculture and sort of where things are going. We answered questions, and it's a really like nice conversation about like, the subculture, which is it's like in a really cool phase right now because it's starting to grow again, which is a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. But they also asked me to do a panel, and it was like an hour with Goth Dad, and I was like, yeah, of course. But then I was like kind of terrified immediately that I said yes, because like Goth Dad is TikTok, and TikTok is 30 seconds or less.
Right. Yeah.
It's like doing like a stand-up set in character, basically.
Yeah. Now you're Andy Kaufman. Like.
Yeah. It was really, and I was like, fuck. Like, I mean, I can talk like this all day. It's no big deal. But like, it's, the thought crossed my mind. I was like, well, how do I run this? And then I realized like, okay, I'm gonna bring our bass player in on this, Dan Geller, because he's like from the Midwest, and his parents are actually like the reason why Goth Dad is Midwestern. Like his parents. So to break it down for you, my dad is like from Vermont, and he is like the ultimate dad joker, but it's all like quantity, not quality. So it's just this like machine gun fire horrible joke, and it's like it's good once every like 15-20 times, but you're inundated. So I took like from him, and then I had actually just met Dan's parents before I had made that first like Goth Dad TikTok or whatever, and they're from like Wisconsin. So, and they were like super stereotypical, like. And now they live in Minnesota, and it's just they were just like, oh geez, where should we go for dinner? I don't know, like, what do you think? And they're just kind of back and forth, and it's so anyway. I brought Dan in on the panel, and it actually ended up being like incredible, because the thing that I guess I haven't realized until that literal moment when I walked through the door to go get on the stage with Dan and do that panel was like that Goth Dad is actually like a thing that people care about. Everything that I ever do, like event wise, I always have this very uh, ubiquitous voice in my head that's like, is anybody gonna come to this? Because
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's gonna come to this. And I knew a few people would be there just because I'd been at the merch booth at the weekend. We had a big merch booth set up at the Marriott, and a few people had come by and said, "Oh, I saw your panel. It's going to be on Sunday before the show, and we're coming." But I walked in, and there's like 200 people there, and
Amazing.
I was like, "Holy shit!" But it went off without a hitch, and like Emily showed up at one point. We brought her on the stage, and we were just talking and sort of we told goth dad jokes, and we did a like game show thing where we like quizzed, because I have no memory at all of anything ever. So Dan was like grilling me on goth dad jokes, and he's like, "Do you remember the punchlines?" And our friend Adam was in the crowd, so we brought him up, and he and the audience were like trying to answer as a counterpoint, and they, so it was really amazing. But once we got to the Q&A section, that was this like really epiphany filled time for me in this like 30-minute segment, because I got to talking to people, and it really was like face to face with people who were saying things like, "Hey, I grew up without a father figure, and your videos have provided me a lot of comfort and a lot of compassion and empathy that I just like did not ever have from a father figure," and it really like emotionally just smashed me. I mean, it was like, damn, like I am creating this like character that's just kind of silly, and like I joke around a lot, like I'm constantly sort of joking around, and it started out as a joke, but it really ended up becoming this thing for people. And I think especially in these like tumultuous times where everything is so uncertain, it is kind of this nice thing, and I understand it a lot more for what it really is. And that's just that it's really out of my control now, and it's not about me at all. It's all about making a character that's like goth adjacent, yeah, and it pays homage to things that I love and things that are like adjacent to Vision Video and all that stuff. But like ultimately, it's about making a character who's like really wholesome, and who is all the things that I wish that I really was and that I am not. You know what I mean? Like it's like everything that I do with Goth Dad, it's like it's the attainment of the ideal for me. And I think it's important to like commit and to struggle to like try to be that, even though I fail every day. But in any case, yeah, it was just like this really beautiful experience, and we like ran through this like gamut of emotions through this hour-long panel, and then we like played a show in front of like a few hundred people in this like gigantic ballroom at the Hyatt, and it was just amazing. It was something that I feel like maybe I don't deserve to do, but I get to do it anyway, so I'm grateful and I'm humbled. So yeah, it was beautiful. It was awesome.
That's really awesome. I can totally understand too about everyone needing something wholesome right now. I think that's why like Ted Lasso has become like one of the biggest. I don't know if either of you watch it, but it's become like one of the biggest shows on television right now, and it's like a very wholesome show. I think we're all glomming onto things like that are making us just feel good and actually feel like it comes from like a sincere, genuine place, like Goth Dad does. And
Yeah.
Kaylin, were you gonna say something real quickly?
Oh, I was just gonna say, especially for a subculture, for kids who grew up probably for the most part feeling very alienated from their fathers, whether or not that was because their fathers were like, the boomer generation isn't known for their self-expression ability,
Yeah.
through like clothing and
Right.
hairstyle, and everything was very, it was different. And beyond that, I think a lot of people turn to that kind of subculture because they don't necessarily have role models or whatever, and which obviously isn't always the case. There's totally cool goth parents out there, and I especially think like in the future it's going to be more of a there's going to be so many grown up little baby bats that are like probably going to be dressing super conservative as a way to rebel against their parents.
Right.
But
totally.
It is funny that like the boomers are the ones that ended up being that way though, you know, because they were the ones that were around during like, you know, the hippie movement and like even into the 80s as adults, you know, like my parents you know, grew up in like going to discotheques in Berlin and like experiencing like synth pop and like 80s krautrock and all that stuff when they were in Berlin. And it's like, you know, I'm fortunate that my parents are really cool and have always kind of with very few exceptions push, you know, or not necessarily push, but like allowed my weirdness to manifest. And especially now, like my parents are all about all the shit that I do now, and it's like so affirming to have the people that created you say like, we're proud of you, we love you, we will support you, and we do support you, and we love what you're doing, you know.
I mean, it's a huge, it is that's one of those things that I think can really make or break a person. I mean, obviously, like therapy is based on that idea, you know. But it is so powerful, and it's great that you're passing it on, because I really do think that it does show up. Like every once in a while, of course, people, you know, who struggle with like a lack of that kind of support can overcome and can like create foundations and confidence and whatever. But those people who are able to, whether it's a biological parent or a role model or a figure, like have that sense of, you know, outside approval, it can be really hard to find sometimes, you know. And once you do find it, you don't even realize, at least for me, I know at my journey, like as an adult, when I started finding that from like friends or, you know, people that I looked up to or whatever, I was like, oh, this is where confidence comes from. I didn't even know that. You know.
Shouts out to my mom. Gotta say every single time, like, hey, have you checked out the podcast yet? She goes, nope. But do you know that Dax Shepard has a podcast? One day that confidence will come. One day.
Your mom is too busy just being fucking awesome, though.
True. True, fair. We love you, John.
I think another aspect of like, especially kids in like that they grow up in like alternative subcultures or are interested in alternative subcultures or just like generally weird, you know. It's like I think one of the things that I'm most grateful for in my life path, because none of this is like by design. I didn't you know, 15 years ago, I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna like join the army, become a firefighter, and then like become goth dad and like do vision video. Like that was not. Like, I have no, like, one of the things I kept saying at the panel we did for Goth Dad was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know. Like, I wake up every day and I'm like, well, guess we're going to wing it again today. Like, you know, the only thing that I actually know that I'm doing is like when I'm in the ambulance, like treating patients, and when I'm fighting fires, and like everything else, I just kind of like wake up and like occasionally things work out for me, and that's great. But you know, I think I'm most grateful for the opportunity to show younger people and like queer people, especially, that like you don't have to look a certain way or be a certain like you don't have to subscribe to societal standards of appearance or things that you're interested in order to do things like be in the military or be a firefighter or be whatever the fuck you want to be, because ultimately, like, whatever you do for your profession or for your passions or whatever, they have nothing to really do with your personal life. But we live in a society that is like, you know, like people just cannot cull the two. And I mean, for better or for worse, I've done that in the past year, especially at the fire department. Like, as soon as our like TikTok and all that stuff started growing for the band, like way before Got That or anything, but just like starting to get our music out there via social media and just like making stuff, you know, where I'm, as I am now, like full makeup and like doing things that I love, but that are like unconventional and strange, you know, I was getting a lot of grief for that until they realized, like, at the fire department as a whole, that, like, two things. One, I don't give a flying fuck, because it's like, okay, cool, man. Like, you know, like all these like bloviating like white hetero dudes that are just like, what's all that queer shit about, man? And I'm like, I don't know, dog, but like, where were you during the war on terror? Because like, you weren't there and I was, and they just shut the fuck up. So, you know, like, that's my, because like, and that's not a flex to me. Like, being like, I was in Afghanistan is like not a fucking flex at all, but it is to them, and it just shuts them down. But you know, like, outside of that, they just saw that, like, I'm pretty fucking good at my job too. Like, I get up, you know, I'm there early before every shift. I work really fucking hard. I'm professional. I'm good at like being a medic, and I'm a pretty decent firefighter too. And it's like, so they start saying, "Oh, okay," and like, now I don't get anything. Like, nobody says the word,
Right?
because they just know, like, well, it's just Dusty, and he just, like, he has this life, you know. And then, like, if they really pick at it, I'm like, okay, well, you know, and I break it down for them. I'm like, I don't know. Do you like the band Kiss? And they're like, well, yeah, they're pretty cool. And I'm like, it's the same fucking thing. Like, it's you know, it's like, it's an expression of who I am in a different way. And they're just like, okay. And it kind of ends there. But anyway, that's a very long-winded thing. But I'm really, really grateful that I get to do that, because it's like constant. You see, if you read through any of the TikToks or social media that I make, where I like do bring attention to the fact that I'm a firefighter or a veteran, and I look like this very often, people, younger kids, are like, holy shit. Like, they're like, I didn't know that existed. Like, I didn't know, I didn't know that that was an option for me. And it's like, hell yeah, it is. You know, go out there and do whatever the fuck you want. You know, just do it well and do it with passion, and you're going to be fine. But you've got to, but the confidence in yourself and the belief in yourself to stand up to like idiots and bullies is the hardest part of it. And that's why I think Goth Dad and a lot of what I do with social media is best suited, because I think I try really hard to like convey that confidence. It's like, you can do this. Like, you can be whatever you want. I don't know. So I hope that comes across, and I hope that like has inspired at least a couple people to do things that they might have been out of their comfort zone, or, you know, or like vice versa, like kids that are interested in looking, you know, alternative or whatever, but they're like afraid because their parents or kids at school or their job or whatever. I mean, it's, you know.
Well, I think especially people who, and I'm, you know, I include myself in this category at times. Like, I'll use it as an excuse to not sort of live as fully as I want to be, because I'm like, oh, well, then I would, you know, it would affect this career. It would affect, you know, the way people see me. And I really do think, like, the more, and I still have like very much a divide between sort of like my creative, like, rock and roll vibe life,
Right.
even like my persona on this show, or like, not that it's a cultivated persona by any means, but it's like who I am on here. And like, I work under a different name when I go to work, just so that like, and that's partly a safety thing, because I'm just like, in close part, it's like a situation that like could be construed as sexual for, you know, I do massage therapy. And so like, I don't want people from Instagram walking in, you know, but at the same time, I also, part of it is like something that makes me feel like, oh, this is separate. Like, my employers aren't going to find this. And I feel like I'm working towards some point in my life where I'm like, everything just feels like one thing. And I just feel like one person. Like, I don't mind having different identities. But, you know, there is something very appealing about that, all just sort of owning it in every aspect of who you are, you know. And I admire that with you. And I also think that it's just a really good reminder, that like, a lot of the times when we are holding parts of ourselves back, that's what people, it's you think you're protecting yourself, but you're just as vulnerable to the world, whether you're, fully expressing yourself or not. So you might as well be fully expressing yourself.
Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. Another aspect of it too that's I noticed actually this weekend was like when you are fully bringing your literal self into the picture on these things, and it's not like Goth Dad is a persona and it isn't for me, like it's part of who I am, but it's like Goth Dad is still Dusty and vice versa, and there's like blurred lines, like it's because people just sort of like consistently refer to me as Goth Dad on TikTok, but like if you go onto another platform where it's like more music orientated, like Instagram, where we're mostly posting stuff about like the band or whatever, people more so know me as like Dusty. And so it's and I'm fine with that, but it is weird because like this weekend I was just like walking around and like every day somebody would just be like, "Hey, are you Goth Dad?" And I was like, it was weird because, and I don't say that like, I hope this doesn't come across as like some homage to my own ego, because like I really don't care that it's like anybody recognizes me. It was just like so shocking, it was like, damn, like hey, how did you recognize me without all this on? But then just it was like it made me realize, when you have a platform that's like pretty substantial on any sort of social media, where you are like regularly seen by thousands of people, you do lose like a bit of autonomy and a bit of like anonymity that cannot ever be taken back. So it's like, while that was a more condensed thing, and I mean that was DragonCon and people knew I was going to be there, so I think it's a bit more like, oh, I'm going to be on the lookout for Goth Dad because he's probably running around, which I was. Like I was running around the whole time. But yeah, it's definitely like I can imagine like in your position, especially like that's got to be really like a major consideration.
Well, it's funny because recently the like 2 times I've been recognized in the past year, I've just been wearing my own band t-shirt. I'm like, oh god, I can't go anywhere.
And Goth Yearbook swag all the time.
Yeah, I mean it's like, I wear Vision Video shirts all the time, and I'm like, that's gonna just come back to haunt me someday. They're like, look at this goober wearing his own fucking t-shirts.
Dude, I get it. After a while, it just ends up being at the top of your like laundry. I get it.
Yeah.
All my shirts right now are like shirts that I've pretty much made for my own creative endeavors or my friends' bands. But while we're on the topic of potentially pissing off murderous stalkers, let's get to some questions from our audience and from our fans.
Let's do this. Okay, I got a few, so bear with me here, but okay. Dusty, aka Goth Dad, let's get right into this. We got someone wanted to know, what's your favorite piece of goth clothing or accessory?
Oh man. Lately it's been my mesh shirt, just because it's so fucking hot in Georgia, and it's
classic.
Like, I mean, you gotta like, well, you know what? Let me redact that. Like my faux leather goth booty shorts that I made, that's my favorite. Because it's just like, people are like, when you're walking by in that and like a garter belt and red stockings and black fishnets over, people just like go, what the fuck? Like,
I can confirm I have that outfit.
Yeah. And it's, especially being a like 195 pound, like just under 6 foot tall guy with gigantic legs. Like it's like, what? Holy shit. Like it's very ubiquitous and apparent. But but like honestly, I mean, in all seriousness though, like it is funny how like dressing for goth stuff in Georgia is a very different thing, and I would probably wear very different clothing as if I lived in, say, New York or like anywhere where it's not just like brutally fucking hot.
Right.
So I find myself wearing like very little clothing. Like I'm very like you know, it's like goth booty shorts and like fishnets, and like that's pretty much it, you know. And but yeah, I don't know. I have like I really love my leather jacket a lot, because I think that like some of my favorite pieces of clothing in the goth subculture are like people's leather jacket, like motorcycle jackets, and their battle vests. Like
Yeah.
shit, do I have one around here? I bought one at DragonCon. Here, let me show you. Hold on one second.
Well, while you're grabbing it, Caitlin, do you got one?
A favorite goth accessory?
So,
Hold on.
I,
That was quicker than I realized.
It was real quick.
I bought this at DragonCon.
Oh, hell
Oh,
yeah.
hell yeah. Nice.
It's got
Super
like
sick.
this old school
Nice.
back
Nice.
patch, and this was only $40, which was fucking nuts to me.
Hell yeah.
But you know, right now it's like really plain Jane. It has like a couple pins that I bought there. Like I got this like Kool-Aid. I don't know if y'all can see. It's a Kool-Aid man, with like a pumpkin, and he's got a severed head and a
that's
bloody
awesome.
knife, and like like a xenomorph alien pin. But you know, I think those are really cool pieces between the motorcycle jackets and the battle vests, because they become these like intensely intimate works of art that are just sort of an homage or an oeuvre of like who like somebody really is.
Mhm.
And you just see like oh man, my friend Adria, who's a lead guitarist and vocalist for the death rock band called Tears for the Dying. It's here in Athens.
Oh, nice.
She has this like white leather motorcycle jacket, and she hand painted very meticulously like her band's name and logo on the back, and it's just like fucking gorgeous, and it's so striking, and like nobody else has that jacket.
Yeah. Dude,
So-
I used to have this denim jacket that was so dope. I bought it at a flea market and I spent a good amount of money on it. It was 70s Levi, and it had like embroidery on the back of this landscape that was like mountains and a lake and pine trees. It was just gorgeous. And then it fit me perfectly, and it was a very unusual cut, and it had like a rip on this shoulder because I wore it so much. All my favorite pins were on it, and then the inside I had like gotten drunk and painted one night, so it was like very personal.
Yeah.
And I fucking lost it at Echo Park Rising one year, at a festival that I was playing, when I had one show at 2 p.m. and then one show at 9 p.m. So you can
Yeah.
imagine how that day went.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh,
I was
God.
very drunk for the second show,
Yeah.
and I left almost everything I owned at the show.
Oh, God. That's such a gutting moment. Oh, there's another jacket that I own too. That reminds me of a story actually. So when I was in the Army, I was very like, that was the most suppressed that I was as far as like subculture and like the goth scene and like me wearing clothing, because I mean I was just so busy all the time. But every once in a blue moon I would go up to like Nuremberg, because Germans love goth adjacent stuff or like full on goth stuff. And I would go to this it was like an 80s night, but there was like this upstairs area, and they had like the goth night up there. So it was like 80s night on the ground floor, goth night upstairs. So you could do kind of both. And it was really cool, and I used to go there, but that was kind of the extent of it. But when I left the Army, I went on this like really big trip, and I had this like, it's not something I'd wear now, honestly, but it was from Zara, and it was just like very gothic, like Sergeant Pepper kind of like military, like, you know, 1800s style, 1700s style jacket, and I put like the Unknown Pleasures back patch on it, and I had all this like crazy stuff, and I still have that jacket. But anyway, I was wearing that all over the world when I left the active Army. I went to China, Japan, Philippines, Australia, New Zealand. But when I got to the fucking Philippines, I forgot the jacket in the overhead. And I was like, fuck, and it had all these pins and badges and shit. And I was gutted. And I was like, fuck, that plane's probably gone, because I was there for like an hour already. And I just like kept talking to the people at the desk. I was like, hey, can just somebody go? I was on this plane, and like they checked, and then they were like, no, there's nothing there. And I was like, fuck, man. And it had, the one thing that really had sentimental value was this patch that was I got in Afghanistan. and I really wanted that because it was the police unit that I worked with, the Afghan police unit.
That sucks.
And I was just like, I only had one. So I'm sitting there just like getting drunk at this bar at the Manila airport. And then this fucking dude just comes running down one of the like concourses. And he's like, sir, sir, sir. And he has it. And I'm just like, holy shit. I mean, it just blew me away. So that, yeah, but I know how fucking just, it's so weird how you just get like, it's not even about the thing. It's just like the intention and like that, how much like commitment you had to that.
I'll still post every once in a while. Like if you ever see someone wearing this jacket, I'll like give the description, be like, stop them on the street, rip it off their body that's stolen.
That shit is 100% out there. And somebody's like, this fucking fly ass jacket that I found.
My favorite goth accessory is black eyeliner. Eric, do you have one?
I have a I don't know. I guess my
your Goth Yearbook sweater.
Oh yeah, actually that is my crew sweater. Only two made, only two in the world. Speaking of eyeliner, actually perfect segue into the next one. I had a couple people ask, what eyeliner do you use?
I use different kinds for different purposes. Like up until recently, I was using Physicians Formula. I think I developed an allergy to it, which sucks. Something they put in it. It's just my skin just have started to say fuck that. As far as like the skin around my eyes, and I just had a reaction to it. So, and it's such a bummer because it's like highly pigmented, it's very dark, and it's very cheap. It's like $5 for the waterproof stick.
I've heard Elf is pretty good as far as like affordable stuff.
Elf is good, and NYX or NYX or whatever, that's really good too. For the pricier but like good option is the Perversion liquid eyeliner. Like I always use the pens. I like to use, if I'm doing like really, really intricate stuff like this stuff, like it's kind of hard for y'all to probably see, but this is just something really straightforward, and I just use this with a pen. But if I was going to use a really detailed design, I would actually get like a liquid eyeliner and use a paintbrush, like a hobby brush for like painting miniatures or something like that. Yeah, because that's where you can really get in there.
I always use the MAC Liquid Last. It's like 24-hour waterproof, and it's like $22 or something. But holy shit, that like you need coconut oil or like some kind of oil to take it off. If you just wash your face, even like I'll like with soap in my eye, and it just won't budge.
Yeah.
So if you're someone with oily lids, but that has a brush, that's a brush as well. It's not a pen. So that's my rat.
Yeah, and it depends like. Also, stuff, I'll wear different stuff for like different occasions. Like if I'm on stage, I'm going to be wearing stuff that holds better, but may not be as controllable. So I can't do as intricate of work. Whereas if I'm just making some TikToks or videos or like, especially Instagram stuff that's like focusing on the makeup, I'm going to use something that has like a lot of glide and a lot of control, but it's not, gonna last forever, and that's fine because I'm gonna like put a face on, make some content, and kind of get rid of it. I'm not just gonna like, I believe it or not, I don't just sit here in my living room just like watching shitty horror movies like this. Well, sometimes I guess I do.
Actually, another good segue because I had a couple people ask, what is your favorite scary / spooky movie?
Somebody asked me this at the Goth Dad panel the other day, and I will probably give kind of the same answer, but it depends on what like level of scary and spooky movie we're talking about, because like overall genre based, like horror film wise, I think my favorite horror film of all time is pretty much easily Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah, hell yeah.
It's just such a fucking phenomenally acted and produced and directed movie. It's like kind of campy, but it's also like intense at moments, and the characters are all really well defined, and
the practical
there's
effects
actually
too.
it's all practical. It's like 1984 Louisville, Kentucky punk rock kids accidentally caused the fucking zombie apocalypse. And like, if you're not into that, like, I don't know if we could be friends. Like, that's like the essence of my soul. And the soundtrack is fucking amazing.
Oh, it's so good.
And like, you know, one of the things, and I think y'all two will appreciate this, is that, like, especially with y'all being out in the West there, because y'all are both in California, right?
Correct.
Okay, so like so in Return of the Living Dead, the reason why the characters are so good and the chemistry is so good is they did 3 table reads for the movie, which is like, they never do that in horror films. People just show up and they're like, all right, do it. And these were almost all like theater people. So they were all like, let's do a table read. And they did it. And they worked with Dan O'Bannon on like, hey, well, I don't think this character would say this. Like, he probably would do this instead. And he was just, scratch it, write it. And that's why it just feels really organic. And I just fucking love that movie. I can watch that movie like legitimately anytime. It's sort of like comfort food for me. You know, when I'm really like just disassociating or like, you know, going through a manic episode, you know, with my like sort of manic depression, like I will watch that like almost every time because it just puts me into this like stable place. And I know every fucking word of that movie, but it doesn't matter because it's just like, it just brings me back to a baseline level of enjoyment of something.
That's how I feel about Breakfast at Tiffany's.
That's a great movie too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a gorgeously acted film.
Especially Mickey Rooney. I mean, talk about it.
Oh God, Eric! I knew you were gonna shit on it.
Oh shit! I count myself.
You know.
What about
my favorite part about that though is that like the iconography of Audrey Hepburn as Holly Golightly has become this like symbol of class and elegance.
Yeah.
All the while, like in the film, she's like
a slob?
She's a sex worker. No, she's a sex worker.
Yeah, she's like,
and that's been totally forgotten by people who like probably have never actually watched the movie or who watch it and don't even understand what they're watching.
Right. Yeah, it's like on the picture for like smoking. It's like on every like college freshman girl, like sorority girl's wall right now.
Yeah, and you know like, girls will like go as Holly Golightly for Halloween, and it's like this symbol of class and elegance, and it's like, okay. Well,
I'm gonna have to watch that again sometime. Honestly.
I love that film.
It's been a minute, but yeah, that's. But the other I guess the other side of the question though. So if we're gonna go into like real scary shit, like Pet Sematary to me is like one of the scariest movies that's ever been made. It's pretty close to the book, which is one of my favorite books. The book is horrifying. If you've never read Pet Sematary, even if you're not into King or horror novels, I cannot recommend that book enough because it is. There's like one part of that book. Have y'all seen the movie?
Yeah, and I read the book. I agree. It's one of his scarier books.
So I haven't.
The part about Timmy Baterman. So like.
Yeah.
So there's this like one scene in the book, and it's in the movie too, but it's sort of like an after what's the term, like afterthought. Yeah, it's like just a small anecdotal afterthought that one of the characters is trying to tell another character like, don't bury this person in this Native American burial ground because they come back and they're all fucked up. And here's why, because somebody did it back in the 40s when this kid was killed in Italy in the Second World War, and he came back and he like comes back and people are just like sort of confused at first, like they're just like, wait, didn't Timmy die? But then he like starts doing weird shit all the time, like unnerving stuff, and then he starts like knowing people's like darkest secrets, and he like starts like telling people out loud. He's like, hey, I know that you like cheated on your wife with that prostitute in Bangor, Maine, and everybody's like freaking out. So they straight up Frankenstein's monster him and like kill him. And you know, it's just this like fucking horrifying moment where you realize like the power of this intense place. And because it still isn't enough for the other character to not bury this person there. And it's the whole film and book is all about addiction and like mortality and loss and suffering and like decay and like sort of the convergence of all of these things. And then of course, like the very, very well known bit is Zelda, it's like the main character's wife has this sort of backstory about her sister who has like cerebral palsy, or some other degenerative disease, and like her parents like leave her with her sister while she's basically dying because they can't deal with it. And so like as a child she watches her sister die, and it's really haunting, and the fucking movie just nails it. So anyway, I could talk about Pet Sematary like literally all night.
Dusty, I'm so happy you mentioned that part in the book that they don't really actually show in the movie. I always say that to people, that there's like this one section when they're talking about that guy. There's a part specifically where they reference like how when they first start to realize something's off about him, because they talk about how like they'd watch him in the middle of the field and he was just like look up at the sun all day long. The way they wrote it, like I got chills the way he wrote it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and so this is like fan service. I'm gonna take my clothes off.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
So YouTube is ovulating.
I have the Native American like burial ground from the movie. Like, hold
shit,
on.
that's fucking really badass. I love that.
Yeah. So
that's fucking awesome.
Gotta love it. Yeah. But there's a couple others that I think are honorable mentions and are right up there, and it depends. Like these all change with my mood, I guess, to some effect. But like for sure, Alien.
Yeah,
it's like one of the most phenomenal horror films of all time, and it's not a sci-fi movie; it's a straight-up horror film.
Yeah.
It's a horror film in space.
And that first one's kind of like minimalist too. I always am so impressed with like how much they did with like so little,
Yeah, I mean that was a low-budget movie technically, but yeah, I mean there's, and then we'll throw in one modern one.
Yeah, wait, I was about to ask you if you had a modern one.
Yeah, I'll give modern day horror to definitely Hereditary.
Yes.
Which I felt was very similar to Pet Sematary.
That was my choice, my friend.
Yeah, Hereditary is it's like tonally, it's just unnerving from the very beginning to the very end. And then the end is such a spectacle. And there's just so many like, there's not a lot of jump scares. There's a couple, but like, there's a lot of like things in the background in that movie, and I think it paid homage to The Shining a lot, because there's just like all this contextual stuff that you can infer, and if you watch it again and again and again, you start picking up on these tiny little details, because like everything in Kubrick's films was like very intentional, and I think they did a really good job at kind of doing that again.
Yeah, I agree. And the soundtrack, I got shout out by Colin Stetson, he's a multi-instrumentalist, but he's like mainly known for whatever that huge version of a saxophone is. That's like the basso saxophone or whatever like that. God damn, that soundtrack, that last song, like you said, is a spectacle. And like the last song where it's almost like a major chord rather than a minor chord. It's like the first major chord throughout the movie, because it is a fucked up triumphant moment in a weird way at the very end. Oh my gosh, I get like uncomfortably erect. I love it. It's so good. I am going to say right now we have so many questions and we are already almost to the hour part. So we're going to treat this a little bit more rapid fire. I'm going to throw
lightning round.
Lightning round.
Let's go.
Who was the first goth band that you ever remember getting into?
Susie and the Banshees. Yeah, I heard it on an airplane when I was 14, and it just blew my mind. And I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And that's like the moment, the genesis, where I was like, "I've got to figure out what this is." And then it just like, went from there.
We just became best friends, man. I have her tattooed on my arm right here. What was the first band, like non-goth band, that you got into?
The B-52s. This is the first show that I ever saw too, here in Athens.
Oh no shit!
I was like 16, and my parents used to listen to them a lot. And I was 16. My friend's mom got us in, and it was their 20th anniversary show. And that was actually another formative moment, because that was the moment where I was like, I'm going to do that one day. So
the Rock Lobster.
Very cool. Because, I mean, that's actually my favorite song too of theirs.
It's great, yeah.
But it was like their ability to command a crowd and to get everybody dancing.
Yeah,
and their musicianship and like their banter was fucking great. Like Fred Schneider's just like so funny, and they're they're just a phenomenal band.
Can you do it?
Athens.
Yeah. Can you do a Schneider impression?
This is Fred Schneider from the B-52s. Come on down to Athens town. It's like...
I love it. It is probably that. Has someone seen my car keys? They were here before, but now I can't find them anymore. It's just like... Everything is like almost like a Dr. Seuss lyric.
I've got a good Fred Schneider story. It's real quick.
All right.
When I was at that show, or right before that show, there's this thrift store. It used to be around the corner from the world famous like 40 Watt Club.
Oh yeah.
Where the show was, and I was just flipping through the stacks of records because they changed them over every week, and Fred Schneider walks in. And I'm like 16, so I'm like freaking the fuck out, and I'm just like, holy shit! Like, should I say something to him? And I was like, no, I'm not gonna say anything to him. So I just sort of like was just like watching over the stacks, and he's like flipping through, and he's like, I found it! Like he literally was like, I found it! Pulls this record out, and then I like follow them up to the register because he's like buying this record, and I have never been able to find out like what the record was, and I might be fucking up the title a little bit, and that's probably why, but it was called something like Music to Strip To.
Excellent.
And he's
title.
like, and he bought it for the girl at the register, and he's like, hey sweetie, I just wanted to give you this because this is one of my favorite records and I think you're gonna love it. And he just gave it to her and then walked out, and that was it.
That's incredible.
Like, what the fuck, dude? Yeah. So anyway,
like just top-notch weirdo behavior.
Yeah.
I was like,
I love it.
I love that man.
Someone wants to know. Another question I got a lot of people asking is, what is one of your favorite songs, video songs to play live? Which one is your favorite to play?
I really like playing. Let's see here, Agent Orange, which is technically not our song; it's a cover, but that's a really fun song because it builds. It's very like hypnotic, and the very end of the song, it just sort of explodes, and people get into this sort of you see people kind of bobbing along to it, and then when that last few bars of the song hits, they're like, holy shit. And just watching the reaction, it's like really cool because people like get a little bit heavier into it during those last few but it's just a little bit, and it's like it kind of makes them go like, oh what, like yeah, it's so that one's really fun. But then for just like pure danceability, I mean honestly, In My Side, it's just so much fun to play because like everybody just starts dancing, and it's like I probably will never write another song as good as that because it was just I'm just kidding, but I mean it's one of those like great songs where you just look back and you're like, wow, like I can't believe we wrote that, and it's sometimes like it all just comes together just right. So yeah, that's a really good one. Like people
I played that one.
Yeah. So
I play that one a couple times on my show, and I swear every single time I ever played it, because I have like people like listen. I'm talking about the radio show specifically on Monday nights.
Yeah.
And I have like like people who listen along a lot, and they will like text me like, "What was that one? What was that one?" Because they don't want to wait for me to like say at the break.
Right.
And I swear, man, I played that song maybe 3 times now, and every single time I always get a huge amount of messages because people love it.
That's awesome. Thanks. Yeah.
It's a very enduring song, and I was listening to it again today, of course, in anticipation of the show. I'm like, fuck, you're right, man. That was like, you guys really, that struck gold on that one.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different things going on in that song, like the vocal like range shifting that I do in that song. It's really difficult to go from low to really high and then bringing back down, and it's it can be a little taxing to do that song because it's also like pretty fast song. I mean, it's like it's probably 160 BPM or something like that, but it's that song starts with Dan on bass and Jason on drums starting together, right? And it's all a rhythm section in the beginning. Yeah, and so it's like that like immediately tells people you got to fucking dance now.
Totally. It has that sense of urgency for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Someone wanted to know. Again, it's so funny how many like multiple people want to know like such hyper specific questions. But two different people want to know who were your big non musical like goth and or otherwise inspirations when you were younger, like people that you looked up to.
Yeah, that's a good question. Great question, actually. I mean, so it's very cliche, but it came out when I was like probably 10 or 11, and my sister was like into the goth scene when I was that age, because my sister's like 6 years older than me, so I looked up to her, and she was into this stuff for like a not a crazy amount of time, but like her teenage years, like later teenage years into her early 20s, and then she kind of got away from it. But The Crow came out when I was around that age.
Yeah.
And just like that scene where he becomes the Crow, and The Cure's Burn is playing.
Such a
and
good
then the
song.
other scene where he's like running through the fucking rooftops, and Dead Souls,
Yeah,
the cover by Nine Inch Nails. And that's honest,
good.
like arguably, I think that is a better cover than the original track. As much as I'm a Joy Division fan,
I agree. Hard agree.
I mean, yeah, you'll piss off some people with that opinion.
Yeah, but it's so true. I mean, that soundtrack
Yeah.
and those two songs in particular.
Right. So that definitely affected me. And then like, I don't know. I mean, I think like just being like horror film adjacent, because I grew up constantly watching horror films. I mean, to the same degree that I do today. I mean, my house is black. There's a hearse outside. My entire house is horror film themed. I mean, it's my favorite genre of film and like any kind of media really at all, like video games, books, movies. I mean, it's all my favorite because it's controlled trauma, and that really means something to me now, having led the life that I've lived. But I think when you're into that kind of stuff, you either get into like horror punk or like rockabilly or like goth, and I just like it kind of helped me. Just having friends that were like also into that stuff as a teenager, who were a little bit older than me. Like I worked at a movie theater, and I knew a few people that were like, goth kids that were like, hey, like we're going to Atlanta to the Masquerade for this like goth night. You're not even old enough to come, but we can get you in. Like, do you want to come? And I was like, fuck yeah. And those are like the kids that I would watch like horror movies with, so that I think it was more just horror in general that kind of helped get me into that.
Going right back into the lightning, someone wanted to know what's one of either your most meaningful or favorite tattoos that you have?
That's a good question. I'm like literally looking at my body.
Kaylin, you can answer too if you know yours.
Like
of my favorite of his.
Like this is my platoon logo from like we made this logo.
That's sick.
And we were the Bull Troop Bastards.
Oh, that's badass.
Yeah, and like as soon as I got back from Afghanistan, I like called my guy in the States when I was coming back from Germany, and a lot of my guys got the same tattoo, and that was just like one of those things that like no matter where we go, what we do, like I will always be a 3rd platoon bastard. Like that is part of who I am, and nothing about the politics, like what's going on in Afghanistan, none of that, nothing can take that thing away from us. And I think that's like we are like I'm a big proponent of like finding your tribe in the world, and we were a rare group. We were very, very different people, but we really meshed well, and that very rarely happens in the military. Believe it or not, actually, it's usually kind of like cliques in a group, and we just loved each other. I mean, it was just like there was never a moment in time where any patrol or any minute in Afghanistan where I was like where I didn't feel like somebody was gonna give their life up for me or vice versa. And that's beautiful. Like that's really truly love. Yeah. So
sounds hot.
Yeah. Absolutely. Bunch of dudes in the desert.
All just loving each other. Next, the book recommendation. Yes. Someone wanted to know a book that you're reading right now that you recommend.
Well, actually, the only book I'm really reading right now is this, which is the Alien role-playing game
Oh my god.
rule book.
You could like fucking murder someone with that thing.
Yeah. Oh, it's insane. I bought this actually at DragonCon. So uh, there's this guy or this team that's actually been licensed by Fox. So everything in the game is canon, and it's like basically D&D in the Alien universe, and it's extremely involved. So I'm reading into it. But it's cool because there's like a story narrative that is built into like the explanation of the rules.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of taken up my time because when I get back from tour, my other friend bought it, and we're gonna host a game night and like run a campaign. And the campaigns are like intense. I mean, it's like D&D. They last like 12 hours.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. I'm definitely not a nerd. Definitely not. But I mean, I guess I've been rereading, like kind of half-heartedly rereading one of my favorite books, which I guess I should actually mention, which is Andrew Lloyd, My War Gone By, I Miss It So. It's basically a book about autobiographically written book about this guy, Andrew Lloyd. He was like a British infantry officer who was in the Gulf War, but he didn't really see any action. So he left the army and he like went to Sarajevo in Bosnia in like the mid 90s, and he was there and he ended up becoming like a very prolific war correspondent and covering different conflicts. But like uh, I am really deeply fascinated by that war because it's a postmodern, like post-industrialized European nation that experienced a fucking genocide.
Right.
And like a lot of shit that happened there is like happening here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's fucking terrifying. But he's just like it's a very prose heavy, very like surreal, gauzy, dream-like experience reading that book. But I can only do it in like doses because
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot. So, but I highly recommend it. Yeah, again, it's My War Gone By, I Miss It So. Really good.
It's a
Ah.
great title.
One more time,
Yeah.
say the title again.
My War Gone By, I Miss It So.
All right. I'm going to check that
Yeah,
out. That sounds really good.
I cannot recommend that book enough. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart because he's very like descriptive of, horrific events. But I mean, it's just like kind of war in general. So
I have a random question for you, but it's been just on my mind recently. But have you read any books about General MacArthur from back in the day? And do you have any recommendations on the subject?
no, I've never actually dug much into him specifically. I've read about him like peripherally, just in like
Yeah.
generalized like history books about the Second World War. Um, yeah, I mean it's definitely something I should probably because I am definitely interested in like military history. I think it's like fascinating because it encompasses like so many things, and it's just like the scale of something like the Second World War is always just kind of blown my mind. Like, when they talk about like how many like billions of tons of munitions were like dropped on Europe. It's like
Crazy.
what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like we could have used all that effort and energy and intention that went into all that shit could have just done something good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously it was for a reason, but like, I mean, that's how I've always felt about war in general, I guess. So it's just that, like, it's like we could like, yeah, maybe it's justified, but like, it's still a fucking nightmare, and it's still requiring all of this like awful shit to happen that takes like logistics and lives and time and money, and it's just a total bummer.
It's a total bummer.
It's a
I've
total
actually
bummer.
There's a podcast I listen to that's like a Jungian. It's three Jungian analysts that talked about different topics within the context of through the Jungian lens. And one of the most recent episodes that they just released is about war, and I've only just started it, but I do think I get really fascinated by things. It's like the same reason I liked watching this show, like Marriage at First Sight. I like when people are like take a step back and they're like, what is this institution?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? Why are we compelled to do this? Like, why did I
Right.
sign up for this? You know, like what
Yeah.
compelled me to do it? So, and I think, you know, like regardless of what your stance is on politics or whatever it is, you know, war has been present as long as there have been humans. And I'm not one of those people that's like, you know, just because something exists now and has existed since the dawn of time, it must perpetually exist and we cannot evolve past this.
Right.
I'm actually optimist in that regard. Maybe definitely not in our lifetimes that I see, but like I do see, you know, if we're gonna like learn to cooperate globally, like, you know, I do think that we're gonna have to tone down the violence. But then, yeah, where does that aggression that's part of our nature get channeled, and how do we defend our resources? But I think there's going to be so much more space as people become more conscious and more awakened, you know, to their own like spirits and multi-dimensional sort of reality, that like we have to cooperate, you know, and that there are means to do that now through communications. But that doesn't mean, you know, it is something so ancient and so archetypal.
Right.
There is sort of this like, we put it up on this pedestal because there's a beauty in it. There's something that we do love and that we are drawn to.
Yeah, absolutely. I honestly think that we will continue to be heavily at war with each other until like, and maybe even, I mean, maybe it's not going to cause it to stop, but like I fully believe in the existence of extraterrestrials. And I think that one day that's going to become a very known thing. And that's going to make people go, oh shit, like we've got to start thinking about things in very different ways.
Yeah.
And I think that that's going to cause like a major shift, but I mean, maybe not. That or we'll just kill each other off before that happens.
Man, so. We'll have to have a whole separate episode dedicated to extraterrestrials and the future of war, because I could, man, I could go on.
Yeah, let's do it. Sign me up.
Yeah. That could be a Patreon episode.
A couple more quick rapid fires because we're about to get to a point where we'll kind of end the show with a little game. But someone wants to know, no context. I'm just giving this to you. You either say yes or you say no. Someone wants to know, will you meet them for brunch in Tampa?
In Tampa?
Yeah.
Sure, why not? Yeah.
Someone wanted to know, will you meet them for dinner in L.A.?
In L.A.?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I guess so.
Someone wanted to know, will you make a Goth Dad OnlyFans?
OnlyFans? Probably not until... Well, I don't know. Maybe one day.
I would like to see a Goth firefighter calendar that's like we can find all the Goth firefighters anywhere in the world, and we can all get them together and take sexy pictures of them.
Yeah.
Someone wants to know, will you make out with them in Toronto?
Toronto. I don't know. Canadians are, you know.
You got 3 seconds. It's just rapid fire. You gotta say yes or no.
Fuck yeah, I'll do it.
Hell yeah. Someone in Topeka, I'm not even joking around, wants to know, Goth Dad, will you go out to dinner with me?
Topeka.
Yeah. You got 3 seconds.
I mean,
3, 2. This
I'm not
your
gonna
schedule's
say no to
booking. Oh my gosh, we got one last one. Someone from Seattle wants to know, will you go on a date with them? 3, 2, 1.
Seattle. Nah, that's grunge land. I'm not doing it. Sorry.
Oh, beautiful.
I gotta draw a line somewhere.
All right, you know what?
I'm just kidding. We'll get coffee and we'll talk.
Got busy. You're gonna have to quit your job, sir.
I know.
All right, we are at the, I don't even know what you call this point, but we're at the near mid end point, but we're going to end like we always do, at least with return customers of ours. Did I say customers? I might guess. We're going to play a little game of MASH. Do you remember, did you ever play the classic schoolyard game MASH? I'm not talking Alan Alda.
Right. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I did. I don't really remember how it all works, but I'm sure you'll guide me.
We're going to guide you. We're going to basically find out, your future. It all
Sweet.
resides in here. Okay, so what we're going to ask, I'm going to ask you for 2 dream places that you would retire to and 1 like nightmare place or the worst place that you could imagine retiring to.
Okay. Dream places of retirement. I'd say Normandy, France, and Tokyo.
And then it came up as
Nightmare.
Tony.
Let's see here. Nightmare, Columbus, Georgia.
Oh, what? Why there?
because that's like the army's town, and it fucking sucks. It's just the worst fucking place
Fuck
on earth.
you, Columbus. All the
like,
Columbuses, man. Really.
yeah, it's just a shitty fucking nasty place, and it's just like there's a couple cool bars and like a couple cool restaurants, but it's just like soldiers everywhere, and they're just like loud and drunk, and I'm like, I just don't ever want to see that place ever again.
I'm like gonna make vacation plans there.
Yeah, you're like one tear crawling down, like crossing it off on your vision board.
I'm just gonna go ahead and drive there when you go there, so that when you realize how badly you fucked up, I can just come get you and we'll escape.
2 dream jobs.
I think if I was surrounded by drunk soldiers.
Yeah.
Sorry, all right, go on. I don't need to finish that thought.
Oh,
damn.
shit. Oh boy, I'm fucking crying. My fucking sweating over here.
Incredible.
Dusty, 2 dream jobs and 1 nightmare job that you get stuck with for life.
Fuck. So I would say like art museum, like guide or curator, or like I guess both maybe, like somebody that brings people through and is like, this is this piece.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. Like I think that'd be.
I think that's
awesome.
a docent.
A docent? Is that what that's called?
I think so.
Okay. Well, that.
Right.
Second one, and I'm not gonna say musician because like, you know, I'm doing that, so I'm not gonna like, let's see here. I would love to be the person that names makeup.
Oh, like the different lines, like what would you say, like a
the
makeup
products?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what that title would be, but I don't know. That would be kind of fun. Maybe just sit around and like. That's a shitty answer. That's like a dream job.
Yeah. Hey, if you get paid really well, that would be cool. Like hours
sitting in a room.
You'd hate it after.
Yeah, we'll call that slime puke green. I don't know.
You would. That probably does get old after like. If it's like all they're asking you to do, and they just keep bringing you more, you're just looking around the room like, I don't know, wall.
Oh, I got one better. Like a horror movie hosting person, like Joe Bob Briggs.
Yeah, exactly. Who I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
And then
nightmare job.
Nightmare job. Thank you.
Nightmare job. Fuck. An accountant. Fuck. Fuck that. Like numbers and spreadsheets and just like having to figure out where things went. It's like that just sounds like icky. Like like because we have to do that shit for Vision Video between Dan and I, and every time it comes up, I'm like, Dan, just like I'll do what you need me to do, but like I fucking hate it so much. Like it makes me like I almost want to cry every time I think about the fact that we have to do this shit. Like next year we're fucking hiring an accountant because I'm like, I'm just not.
Yeah.
I can't. Like if you were in a room with no windows, like in a cubicle, on like an old ass like 2000 like XP
MS
computer, or like just and you're just like clacking away, and there's just like some Lumberg type fucking dude who's just like, is that account closed? And you're just like, fuck you, like I'm gonna kill myself. Like, no.
I would be fired so quickly.
Yeah.
Two of your favorite colors and your least favorite color.
Okie dokie. Purple and red.
Mm-hmm.
And least favorite color is probably, man, I don't know. Maybe yellow, like shitty 70s yellow. Like a burnt sienna.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know.
Turmeric.
Yeah, exactly.
I already wrote down shitty 70s yellow, but we'll make a correction later. Two, you already probably own it sounds like, but 2 dream vehicles that you would end up with, and like and it doesn't have to be vehicles. I always tell people it can be just any mode of transportation or like a nightmare one.
Okay.
I think of a better word than nightmare.
So two dream and a nightmare. I mean, I'll go with the hearse because it is fun. It's just so much fun. They're actually really fun to drive because they're really smooth. They have this like air suspension where the
you would have to
huge. The casket's like fucking heavy, especially if somebody's in it. So it's all about this like smooth ride. But they've also got some get up to them, surprisingly.
Neil Young used to own one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so a whole bunch of people like Bauhaus used to tour in one, like in the very beginning. Yeah. So that's cool. But so a hearse and any kind of transportation vehicle. I don't know. Like,
do you have like a favorite fictional spaceship or like fictional vehicle?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, we'll call it USCS Sulaco from Aliens, the Marines transport ship.
All right, and then what would be the?
I can just imagine Eric trying to spell that right now.
SULACO.
Oh, say it for me.
It's SULACO, Sulaco.
Oh, how quickly I was trying to be like, and Nightmare one, quickly while I Google this.
Nightmare vehicle, I don't know, a fucking MARTA train. That's the Atlanta,
yeah.
Shitty, I mean, it's just the shittiest, the shittiest possible public transport system in the fucking world. It's awful.
Okay, so who would be, you can use like fictional or real, like celebrities or this or that, but these are like your two dream crushes that you would like end up marrying or like being with together as a life partner, and then the worst person that you could get saddled up with.
Shit. Okay. Scarlett Johansson, Charlize Theron, and worst Ben Shapiro.
Hold on. So I'm still putting Charlize Theron. ScarJo, I was putting as the shorthand when turned up as a Scarborough, and then Ben Shapiro. Okay, perfect. And then what's the next one? Okay, we'll randomize that. Give me 3 random numbers.
4, 20, 69.
Nice.
69 up top, my brother. All right, and then tell me 2 dream animals and 1 like piece of shit animal. And you'll be judged. Yeah.
Okay, dream animals.
I want to welcome our guests in the YouTube, the PETA council board. He said they were watching tonight's episode.
Yeah, they're like, this is unacceptable. All animals. Panther.
Ooh.
Fuck. Panther. We'll go with like humpback whales. I think they're amazing. And shitty animal is gonna be fuck, I don't know. Like just hornets.
Yeah.
Fuck hornets.
Dude,
hornets are fucking awful.
That's a good one. I appreciate that. Okay, we're almost to the end here, Dusty. I'm going to start spinning. I'm going to be drawing a circle. You tell me when to stop.
Okay. Stop.
Oh, I was going to say, whoa. That was a 7. All right. We are crossing things off, and by we, I mean my phone. I'm just going to skip ahead here. All right. Are you ready to hear your future, sir?
Hit me.
All right. Goth Dad. Once you graduate, you'll find work in Normandy in France as an accountant. You hate to see it. You'll get around town in your shitty 70s yellow UCSC Suluco or whatever the fuck. Sulaco.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, though, here we go. You'll marry Scarlett Johansson and you'll live in a house and with your 4 kids. You're going to have 4 kids with your ever loyal pet Hornet.
God damn.
Hey, it's a loyal pet.
I feel like that is such a fucking roller coaster ride of a life.
That might have been one of the harder ones I've seen people have to get.
But that's how life is, though. You get some things you want, and sometimes you get the opposite of what you want.
You gotta take the good with the bad.
living
really
in
do.
France with Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, that's worth it.
And you know what? She's probably the breadwinner. Your job as an accountant is probably like you
to
kind
count
of
her
probably
money.
work for. Yeah, exactly.
Although, have you seen the TikTok trend where it's like, I'm an accountant? So maybe
And
it's my OnlyFans.
Yeah,
Got
exactly.
Dad's OnlyFans.
Oh, that's great. I like that. All right. Well, I'm going to post that up on the Instagram. And I want to thank all the people who submitted questions. There were so many. And I loved how there was just like this inundation of like random date requests. And I'm going to hold Dusty to it. Every single one of you out there, hear me now. That is
Except
the
for
Goth Yearbook.
Seattle.
Yeah, that is the Goth Yearbook
Yeah.
guarantee, except Seattle. Fuck you, Seattle. Fuck you, Columbus, Georgia. But that being said, that is all the time we have this evening. Dusty, thank you so much for returning and indulging us in all this crazy weirdness. Thank you for giving us like a bountiful amount of great stories and answers. That was incredible, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me, kiddo.
Um,
Got to get in a last little bit of goth dad.
I felt
We
it
appreciate
here.
it.
I felt
I
it
needed
here.
it.
Yeah. Father's Day. Listen, where can people? What do you have coming up? Is there anything you want to plug? I think you have some tour dates coming up. Is that not correct?
Yeah, we totally do. So you can find us on pretty much everything as just like @Vision Video Band. Our website is sort of a hub for everything, and that's videoband.com. But yeah, we're going on tour as of 10 days from now. We will be headed up basically out north and then dead west. Our turnaround is like Boise for Tree Fort Festival, but we get to do some really amazing things before that. So like Asheville, Indianapolis, Chicago. We landed at Audio Tree live session in Chicago.
Congrats,
so
that's awesome.
Crazy. I'm terrified because it's live, and I'm like, fuck me. Like,
holy shit, that's
but
big.
It'll be,
that's awesome.
it'll be fine. Yeah, so we got all that, and then we're hitting Colorado and a couple other places like Salt Lake and etc. So anyway, if you go to the website, there's tour dates listed there. You can actually purchase pre-sale tickets. That helps a lot. And then I guess I'll just say this because I get a lot of questions about like, when are you coming to Texas? When are you coming to New York and XYZ. So we just signed to a really good booking agent. And so we are going to be playing a fuck ton of shows.
Hell yeah.
As long as it's able, and the world doesn't just completely fucking collapse in on itself. But anyway, we'll be playing a lot more next year in a variety of places. So just like, especially Instagram, that's where we post all of our music stuff. But then if you want to see a grown man publicly embarrass himself, TikTok, I'm very good at it. So.
Yes, you are. You are very good at it, and I'm surprised that that's what TikTok's for. I'm surprised I'm not actually already excelling on that.
Yeah. Oh, there's a place for you, my friend.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. That's really awesome that you got all that lined up, and that is actually exciting. They have all these dates that are potentially on the horizon with this new booking agent, because that was also a lot of the questions I got, which was like, when are you coming here? When are you coming here? And that's awesome.
Right. Yeah.
We'll have you back. I know we will. It's always an absolute pleasure. Thank you for staying up late. And we'll talk soon. No, Caitlin, as I always say, thank you for being the co-host with the Mo-host. I'm going to say good night, y'all. Good night, y'all.
Bye.
Bye, baby bats. Take care.
Bye.